In the dim archives of a forgotten New York library sealed away for decades lies a transcript from 1985, smuggled communications from beyond the veil, dictated by Arthur Ford himself. This psychic medium, once advisor to presidents and celebrities, unveiled truths about immortality that governments and skeptics buried deep. Why was his voice silenced? What eternal secrets did he bring back from the dead? Prepare to uncover the hidden revelations of a man who crossed the boundary and returned changed. Arthur Ford emerged in the early 20th century as one of America's most enigmatic figures, a self-proclaimed medium born in 1896 whose seances drew the elite and the desperate alike. From the 1920s through the 1960s, he claimed direct contact with the departed, channeling messages that blurred the line between science and spirit. Yet his most profound insights came not from sessions in smoke-filled rooms, but from a personal brush with death in the 1940s during a bout of severe heart disease exacerbated by years of chain smoking and relentless mediumship. Doctors pronounced him terminal, family gathered for a final vigil, but Ford didn't die that night. Instead, he slipped into an out-of-body state glimpsing the beyond, a realm he later described in hushed, fragmented notes that circulated underground among parapsychologists. These accounts, overlooked amid post-war skepticism and his own growing fatigue with the gift, were archived but rarely examined, dismissed as delusion by mainstream science. Only in 1985, through a network of trusted mediums like Edward Wren, did Ford's voice resurface from the afterlife, dictating details too radical for public release. Suppressed by those fearing mass hysteria or challenges to religious dogma, these transcripts paint Ford not as a showman, but as a reluctant explorer of the invisible. At the heart of Ford's forbidden revelations lies a radical reimagining of death, not as an end, but as a liberation into eternal form. During his near-death episode, Ford recounted hovering above his lifeless body in a hospital bed, freed from the crushing pain of his diseased heart. No terror gripped him. Only an insatiable curiosity propelled him forward. He described drifting through a timeless void unburdened by physical weight, until he emerged into a verdant valley cradled by towering mountains, a landscape of impossible clarity, where light pulsed with inner life. There, figures approached, departed loved ones, transformed. Elders who had withered on earth now radiated youthful vigor. Children lost too soon stood as mature adults, their essences unbound by the decay of flesh. I saw them not as ghosts, but as they truly were, renewed whole, Ford later channeled. This wasn't mere hallucination. It was, he insisted, a direct encounter with the quote, _1, an astral counterpart to our physical shell, embodying the core personality stripped of earthly corrosion. In the beyond, aging ceases entirely, a choice, not a curse. Ford himself, upon his full transition in 1971 at age 73, selected the vitality of 45, lingering in that form indefinitely. Why the suppression? These visions challenged the finality of mortality, suggesting death as a mere wardrobe change, hidden to preserve societal order and the fear that keeps us tethered to the material world. As Ford's experiences deepened, they unraveled the psychological threads of consciousness itself, weaving a tapestry of existential intrigue that lingers like a half-remembered dream. He spoke of subtle perceptions beyond the five senses, inner sight, empathic knowing, that awaken in the beta body, allowing one to read souls as transparently as open books. No words were needed. Truths flowed in waves of intuitive light. This shifted his view of life, from fleeting struggle to preparatory illusion, where earthly trials forge the spirit for an afterlife of boundless exploration. Yet, doubt gnawed at him even in those valleys. Why do we cling to the visible world, blind to this inner architecture? Ford's fatigue with mediumship stemmed from this very tension, the exhaustion of bridging realms, pulling veiled knowledge into a skeptical age. Through channeled sessions post-1971, he reflected on resurfacing memories in a luminous chamber, replaying his earthly fears and gifts, only to emerge at a serene forest lake, adapting to his chosen form amid whispering waters. Here the beyond revealed itself not as paradise or punishment, but as a mirror to the self, amplifying one's unresolved psyche, demanding confrontation with hidden truths, long buried in the subconscious. Fade to the quiet ripples of that afterlife lake, where Ford pondered the unseen mechanics of the soul. In a speculative whisper not captured in his earlier notes, he envisioned consciousness after death as a fractal echo, splintering, yet reuniting with a collective awareness, a personal thread woven into an infinite tapestry, where individuality persists but expands, tasting the minds of all who have ever been, without losing the spark of I. What if Arthur Ford's silenced echoes are the key to unlocking our own hidden immortality? The boundary awaits. Will you dare to listen? In the shadowed vaults of forgotten archives, a reel of audio tape lay buried for decades, sealed away after its explosive revelations threatened to unravel the foundations of mortality itself. This lost recording, smuggled from a clandestine 1940s seance, captures the voice of Arthur Fort, the renowned medium whose visions pierce the veil between worlds. Suppressed by skeptics and institutions, fearing its implications, it whispers truths about the afterlife that no science dared confront. Arthur Fort was no ordinary figure in the turbulent landscape of 20th century spiritual inquiry. Born in the late 1800s, he emerged as a pivotal medium during the height of the spiritualist movement, bridging the living and the dead through trance communications that drew crowds of intellectuals, scientists, and the grieving. Yet much of his most provocative material, transcripts from sessions where spirits unveiled hidden dimensions of existence, was systematically overlooked or dismissed as pseudoscience in the post-war era. Why? Because Fort's insights challenged the rigid boundaries of death, consciousness, and the human form, exposing a reality where the soul's essence defied earthly decay. These suppressed dialogues, pieced together from fragmented notes and rediscovered tapes, reveal a man haunted by the echoes of the beyond, his mind a conduit for revelations that blurred the line between psychic intuition and philosophical prophecy. At the heart of this forbidden archive lies Fort's core revelation: the afterlife as a realm unbound by the tyranny of time and aging. Through his altered states of communion, Fort channeled voices from the other side, describing a spiritual existence where the body is not a prison of flesh, but a malleable expression of the soul's deepest truth. Imagine shedding the weight of years like a discarded cloak, emerging not as a frail echo of your mortal self, but as a vital embodiment chosen freely from the soul's eternal wellspring. In one reconstructed transcript from a 1932 session, a spirit guide relayed through Fort, "The form we take here mirrors the light we carried within. Age is but an illusion of the physical coil, dissolved upon crossing the threshold." This discovery deepened Fort's existential tension, pulling him into a psychological vortex of intrigue about death's true nature. What if consciousness, in its rawest form, rejected the linear march of decay? Fort's visions painted the afterlife as a psychological rebirth, where the deceased confront the hidden architectures of their inner worlds, archetypes of youth, vitality, and unfulfilled longing manifesting as tangible reality. No longer slaves to biological clocks, souls navigate a timeless expanse, their appearances shifting like shadows in a dreamscape, reflecting not chronological years, but the unresolved harmonies or dissonances of earthly life. Fort himself grappled with this in his private journals, later suppressed. The terror and liberation of realizing that death strips away the body's deceptions, forcing a raw encounter with one's authentic self. Relatives awaiting the newly arrived don't greet you in wrinkled familiarity. They stand renewed, their faces alight with the vigor of inner peace, guiding you through the disorientation of renewal. A grandmother, once bowed by decades of toil, now radiates the spirited essence of her prime, recognizable yet liberated from suffering scars. This flexibility, Fort emphasized in his trance narrations, underscores the spiritual body's supremacy. Transient flesh yields to an eternal form sculpted by desire and moral resonance. Those who lived in alignment with their core values arrive youthful and whole. Those burdened by inner turmoil may linger in reflections of unrest until harmony is restored. Through these forbidden channels, Fort uncovered how the soul's vitality endures, proving that aging is merely a veil over consciousness's boundless horizon. Yet, in the quiet interludes of his meditations, Fort speculated further on the mysteries of post-mortem awareness, a thread not fully woven in his public discourses, but hinted at in lost seance fragments. What if consciousness after death extends beyond individual form, merging into a subtle resonant field where souls commune as interwoven echoes of collective memory? This ethereal network, he pondered, might allow the deceased to revisit unlived potentials, their awareness rippling outward like whispers in an infinite hall of mirrors, forever evolving without the anchor of solitary identity. As the tape's final echoes fade, Arthur Fort leaves us with a haunting query. If death renews us to our truest essence, what hidden facets of your own soul wait, unaged and unchained, on the other side? Fade in. Eerie, pulsating ambient music underscores a grainy black and white image of a dimly lit study, cluttered with arcane books and flickering candlelight. A vintage microphone sits idle on a wooden desk, as if waiting for a voice long silenced. Narrator, deep measured tone, like an investigator unveiling a classified file. In the shadowed archives of forgotten spiritualists, a tape was discovered. Sealed away for decades, its label faded but insistent. Quote 5 recorded in the turbulent 1930s. This lost transcript captures the medium's most audacious claims, suppressed by skeptics and institutions fearful of what it revealed about the soul's uncharted journey. What Ford witnessed in his trance states could shatter our grasp on reality. If only we dared to listen. Smooth transition. The screen dissolves into archival photos of Arthur Ford, intense eyes staring out from a sepia portrait, intercut with swirling ethereal vapors, evoking altered consciousness. Arthur Ford was no ordinary man. Born in 1896, he emerged in the early 20th century as one of America's most enigmatic psychics, bridging the living and the dead through seances that drew the elite and the desperate alike. A former soldier, scarred by World War I's horrors, Ford's gifts blossomed amid the spiritualist revival, where he channeled spirits with uncanny precision, predicting events, exposing scandals, even communing with luminaries like Emanuel Swedenborg, the 18th century visionary whose own afterlife explorations echoed Ford's. But this material, It was buried deep. Overlooked amid Ford's more public feats, these private sessions were deemed too radical, too disruptive to the era's rigid scientific and religious doctrines. Hidden transcripts, smuggled from his estate after his death in 1954, suggest a deliberate cover-up, perhaps by those who profited from keeping death's secrets locked away. Transition. Cut to dramatized reenactment, Ford in a trance, head bowed, voice echoing as if from another realm. Subtle visual distortions ripple across the frame, heightening psychological intrigue. At the heart of Ford's suppressed revelations lies a vision of death, not as oblivion, but as a gateway to unbridled liberation. In one clandestine recording, reconstructed from fragmented notes, Ford describes the soul's exodus. Quote 6. He spoke of this transition as an involuntary shedding, drawn from his own near-death encounter in 1935, when a sudden illness plunged him into the veil. Their souls, those departed entities he called underscore, quote underscore 7 underscore, gathered not in stasis, but in vibrant flux, their essences stripped of earthly tethers. No more the drag of aging bones or festering wounds, instead a profound unburdening, where traumas dissolve in waves of luminous energy, allowing the core self to emerge raw and renewed. Transition slow zoom on symbolic imagery, a butterfly emerging from a cocoon, morphing into abstract neural patterns, blending the mystical with hints of consciousness studies, building existential tension. Ford's insights plunge deeper, unraveling the illusions we cling to about existence itself. He challenged the finality of death, insisting it was merely a pivot in an eternal spiral. Life and death, he reflected in a hushed aside from the archive, are twins, not foes. One breathes into the other without pause. Drawing from visions that mirrored Swedenborg's systematic mappings of spiritual planes, Ford portrayed the afterlife as a forge for the soul's evolution. Freed from physical drudgery, these beings pursued growth through ethereal dialogues and introspective voyages, confronting inner shadows not with dread, but with the clarity of unbound awareness. Yet this freedom carried a haunting edge, the psychological vertigo of confronting one's unmasked psyche, where suppressed truths, betrayals, unlived dreams surface like ghosts in the light. Ford's own brush with the beyond left him forever altered, haunted by the question, if death reveals our truest form, what illusions do we nurture in life to avoid that gaze? Transition. The visual shift to a contemplative void, stars wheeling in infinite space, accompanying a pause for dramatic weight as the narrator's voice lowers to a whisper. Expanding on these forbidden glimpses, Ford touched on the interplay of consciousness and the cosmos, a theme woven through his encounters with researchers like Edward Wren, who documented his trances in the 1920s. The medium envisioned death as a dissolution of ego barriers, where individual awareness merges into collective streams of knowing, echoing archetypes of unity that psychologists of his time dismissed as delusion. This wasn't mere mysticism, it was a philosophical assault on materialism, suggesting that our daily perceptions are but veils over deeper, interconnected realities. In the spiritual world, Ford claimed, souls navigate symbolic deaths within deaths, shedding layers of outdated beliefs to ascend toward enlightenment. Their journeys, a testament to consciousness's indomitable adaptability. Transition, subtle overlay of neural firings, transitioning to glowing soul figures, introducing the speculative element with a sense of dawning wonder laced with unease. One untold layer from Ford's visions, pieced together from overlooked marginalia, in his journals, speculates on consciousness's post-mortem echo. Perhaps in that liberated state the soul doesn't merely persist, it reverberates, imprinting fragments of its earthly wisdom onto the fabric of universal memory, subtly guiding the living through synchronicities and intuitions, a hidden inheritance that binds generations across the divide. Transition. Fade to a stark close-up of the original tape reel, unspooling slowly as the music swells to a resonant, unresolved chord. In the end, Arthur Ford's hidden archive leaves us suspended at the threshold. If death is not an end but a beginning stripped of our illusions, what truths about ourselves are we too afraid to face in the light of eternity?